Welcome to Running is Bullshit. I'm Amy.
And I'm Stuart, and you're listening to the podcast that loves to hate running. This is episode 150, and we're celebrating by doing exactly a normal episode. This week we're talking about ignoring warnings, hill reps, and getting a stitch like a little kid who's run around too much at a birthday party. Well, we were going to record this yesterday on International Women's Day, so I was going to make like the logo pink or something, but you fell asleep and so we didn't do the episode, and so you get nothing now. It's back to Man's Day. We're back in charge. You get nothing.
I was being an international woman, you know.
You were, yeah.
I do have something to say. Sorry to share quickly because it's funny on International Women's Day. But yesterday, it's nothing to do with running, of course. But yesterday, I was doing some jobs, which is why I fell asleep. I was very busy yesterday. But one of the jobs I had to do was put some more coolant in my car. So I was in our complex's car park with the bonnet open, putting the coolant in. Some man drove by, slowed down, and asked if I needed a hand.
Very nice of him.
On International Women, maybe I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and think maybe he thought I'd broken down or something. But I just don't feel like he'd say that to a man. I don't know. But I just laughed and went, no, I'm just putting coolant in the car. It's fine. It's very easy. Even for my little woman brain, I can manage to do that. Oh no, shit! I've put it in the screen wash by mistake. Oh no. But yeah, so I thought that was quite funny and quite ironic on International Women's Day. So yeah, that's my little number and story.
A shout out to all the international women.
Yes, yeah, we love you. International Mrs. Worldwide. Pitbull, Mrs. Worldwide.
Don't know what that is.
Anyway.
Amy, have you got something about running to talk about?
I'm sorry, I've got to talk about runfluencers again.
Yes.
I know. I'm like, it's just a morbid fascination with runfluencers. So, if anyone's on running TikTok, you may have seen sort of these Utah-based running influencers. If you haven't heard of that, you might be wondering what I'm talking about. But it's basically a group of sort of young women. There's some men as well, but young women, so they're early to mid-20s, and they run in Utah. And they also run, and it looks freezing there. There's snow. They're running in a canyon, and there's snow, and they're always wearing just a sports bra style top and tiny little shorts, and they look absolutely freezing. But they have these brand deals. That's part of the reason why they wear them. Oh, yeah. But that's fine. You know, I'm not. It was International Women's Day. Sorry, I'm not gonna tell them what they can't wear. What I find interesting is this new trend, and I'm not sure whether anyone's heard of it, where you do all your training downhill. And you might be thinking, how do you do that? Well, what they do is they drive to the end point, and then they shuttle a car. So they plan it, they shuttle. So they take 2 cars, for instance, and they go to the end point, and then they get in another car and they drive to a start point. And then so they can do the whole thing downhill. And they only enter races, and I think there's a special name for it, and somebody listening will probably know. They also only enter races that are point A to B's and mostly downhill. And it's just funny because they'll post these videos where they'll be running really fast, and they'll post their splits, and it will seem quite impressive. But then you realise you look at their Strava downhill, and you see the elevation, and you're like, that's downhill. And it was funny because I was saying to Freya the other day, I was like, they've done a 20-mile run, which is purely downhill, and they're doing 9-minute miles. And I'm like, it's not that impressive if you're running downhill. And Freya's like, well, I guess a run's a run. What difference does it make? I'm like, no. It's not the same. If you're running solely downhill for 20 miles, you're being aided by gravity there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, when you put this in the notes, I thought this was something, it was going to be running TikTokers of only filming themselves running downhill to make themselves look good when they run, which probably is part of it. But this is they are intentionally only training downhill.
Yeah, I'm going to have to... I should have put it in the show notes if I'd been more organised, but I've got some screenshots of the Stravas, but they are downhill. They're purely the 20... And somebody commented on one of their TikTok accounts and was like, this is all downhill though. And well, 20 miles is 20 miles. And yeah, I get that. And if you enjoy running downhill, fine. And I don't see any problem with it in itself. If people want to go and run I'm sure that's really fun. I'm sure it's lovely and really fun to run really fast downhill for 20 miles. I'd love to do that. But it's just this impression they tend to give on their TikToks of posting their splits constantly. It doesn't count. Don't post your splits.
The reason why they're doing it is to pad their stats, clearly.
Yeah. That's the thing. And like I said, I I would love to do 20 miles downhill. That sounds really fun. But I wouldn't then be like posting my splits everywhere and saying, oh, look at how fast I ran these miles. Like, it's downhill.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think it's also that part of that insanity of the way Americans will talk about their runs and say, I did 20 miles at 9-minute miles.
Yeah.
Instead of saying I did 20 miles in a certain time, they make you do maths, which I don't understand. It makes no fucking sense to give your distance and speed, but not the overall time, which is actually the important thing. Like, no world record is set. You don't say the marathon world record is however much, it's 13 miles an hour. It's just, it's bonkers anyway. And running downhill isn't always easy. If it's quite steep, that is quite difficult. It's hard on the joints. It can be hard on like your quads and things. But then they're only entering downhill. How many downhill races are there?
Yeah, that's the thing. They're
Can't
like
be that
seeking
many.
them out. I think I'll have to find the Strava splits as well from this like 20-mile run. But it was like between sort of 150 feet of downhill each point. Oof, so like it's like over each mile. So that's quite a nice. If that's gradual, and it does seem gradual because it's like a road in a canyon. So that might be quite nice. That might be like and they do the same loop. They do the same route. Sorry, it's not a loop. They do the same route every single time. So I imagine they found it where the gradient is just nice, like just carries you along. And like I said, I'm sure that's lots of fun. But then don't post all over social media being like, oh, I did these splits. It doesn't count. But you can see as well when they do their races. So they're running Boston. I think they're training for Boston at the moment.
Downhill race.
Yeah. But when they do their splits from races that aren't mostly downhill, you can see they just struggle with it because they're not being aided by gravity the whole time. And I will say again, like nothing wrong with it in itself, but don't post all over.
Don't go on about your pace.
It's like really unrealistic expectations because, like I said, they're all like super they look like they could be sort of running fitness models, they look they're young, they look a certain way, they wear certain clothes, nothing wrong with that. And then they're posting like these splits, and I'm just like, you're giving such unrealistic expectations that probably making a lot of people feel shit. It's like, when you see like fitness influencers at the gym and they show pictures when they're at their very best, but they're also super dehydrated, so you can see all their muscles, but they're super dehydrated. It's not what's the word, like it's
healthy,
not
normal, sane,
it's not
safe.
It's not very achievable to most people. It's not sustainable. That's the word I'm looking
absolutely.
for. It's not sustainable. So when I just think there's this thing about posting these videos where you look like a fucking model, like you look great, like you're wearing a sports bra and tiny shorts when it's freezing cold outside, and then you're running super fast because it's downhill, but you're not really being super blatant about that. It just gives this whole impression. But yeah, I just think it's that whole influence culture that just gives unrealistic sort of goals for people, and there'll be loads of, especially women, in the comments being like, oh, you're an inspiration to me and all this. It's like, that's not inspiration. It's not real. It's not real life. It's not real.
I've been tricked a few times like that. Like, I've been in the middle of a long run and like had a few good miles and thought, fucking hell, I feel absolutely amazing. This is a great run. I must be really fit. And then I look back at the Strava and like, oh, it's because I was running next to this canal, and obviously that was like a very slight gradient downhill.
Yeah.
And all I do is laugh at that. I don't think, well, I was amazing. That's helping my training. It's probably not. If anything, running the other way would probably help it a lot more. But just to make that the intention, like that's their niche, is a very, very odd one.
Yeah, and they've got loads of brand deals as well. So they're making.
So we all know exactly what they look like and the kind of post they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just not. And they all look the same. They all look the fucking same. There's like 5 of them in this particular group, and they all look the same. And it's like, bro, diversify your friends, speak to different people. Like, what is going on? They're all wearing the same clothes, all running downhill, all posting to the same music. I don't know. It's just something about it. It's very Black Mirror-esque. But runfluencers running downhill. I honestly, like you, when I first heard about this downhill stuff, I was like, surely not the whole run. Like, how does that even work? But yeah, they've made it work.
Logistically, that's difficult. Not worth it.
Yeah. No, exactly. that's my annoying thing this week.
Well, that was good. Well, that was a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Let's have a catch up from the last episode. We've just kind of got one real catch up from the last one, and it's not in any way a fun one. It's a story from a listener about being the victim of a stalker within their workplace and the receipt of hundreds of abusive messages, usually overnight, as well as following them round, leaving notes about where they were and what they were wearing. However, the assigned safeguarding officers in this workplace knew the perpetrator and wouldn't do anything about it because they were mates. And, this was shared. I know it's not, directly relevant to running, but it was shared to emphasise the importance of things like club welfare officers and people who are assigned to safeguarding, making sure they're properly trained and aware that incidents like this are almost certainly more common than most of us think. And it was something else we were chatting to Bethan about last week, I think, off mic, eventually out of the recording. And it's something that I think about a lot there's a huge explosion of informal social running groups. And I just kind of worry sometimes because, things go wrong. And when you're around for a long time, you have a lot of people, you'll get bad people come along and they'll do bad things. And when you have this kind of informal fun, hey, we're just going to meet up and we just run together and that's it. There's no rules. But at some point you do kind of need rules, because if someone does something that is bad, it's very difficult to kick them out when there's nothing to kick them out of. And so I just worry sometimes about these kind of informal social running groups, because they talk about how fun and informal they are. But as boring and dramatic as as policy sound, and they can be very boring, but you need them in place to help with these situations because they do happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And even though, the listener said it wasn't running related because it happened in a different context, I do know of similar situations that have happened
absolutely.
from run clubs. So it could have easily been a run club that this happened at. And I think maybe sometimes even more likely because, like you say, some of these run clubs, they're 100 people plus, and you're increasing your likelihood of coming across somebody who's not quite right, So I think it's really, really important, because I thankfully I've never experienced something like this, but I imagine it's absolutely terrifying and must cause so much stress. So yeah, and also just a reminder for anyone, men and women, I would hide your start and finish location on your Strava as well.
Surely everyone's doing that.
Yeah, but if you're not, and if you didn't know this was a thing, or if you're thinking, oh, but no one follows me on Strava, blah, 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 just do it anyway. You might as well just do it anyway,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Again, like I've said, I don't have any worries in that area, but I'll still do that. I'll still hide my start and finish locations because, I think you can set like a circle around your house.
Yeah.
And it kind of randomizes it slightly so you can't pinpoint it. And you can set the radius, things like that. I mean, if your Strava is public, you should at least be doing that. Definitely.
Yeah, and also make your Strava private if you can. I mean, some people like to have a public Strava, but just make it private, Like, better to be safe than sorry. So, yeah, I think that's a really important message from that listener to remind us that it is more common than you think. I think most people know, if they haven't experienced something like this themselves, they know of somebody who have experienced this, even in an extreme or a milder case or whatever, but somebody who's experienced some form of stalking or somebody making them feel uncomfortable with their behaviour. So yeah, really important. Like I said, really important when it comes to run clubs where you're interacting with lots of different people, and also people who may come in for 1 week and then disappear for a few weeks and come back, and all those sorts of things. Sometimes it's more difficult then when they're a bit more transient to sort it out. So yeah, I think welfare officers in this regard are really, really important.
Yeah. And those informal groups, as well-intentioned as they are, and they absolutely always are, they're always led by really kind of good people. And as well-intentioned as they are, unfortunately something at some point will go wrong. And it's then, I do worry about them. Like, what do they fall back on? How do they enforce a rule that isn't really there? How do you ask someone to leave a group that isn't really a formal group in any way? I don't know. That always worries me a little bit.
Definitely.
Should we have a cup of tea instead?
Yeah. Need a cup of tea after all this.
Ooh. We are partnered with Burden Blend Tea, and that means we'll tell you what tea we're drinking. If you like the sound of it, you can go runningsbs.com/tea and click on the links, buy some tea, have a nice cup of tea, and just kind of forget about the world a little bit for a few minutes. That's quite nice. How are you forgetting the world just at the moment?
I've got some red velvet tea.
Oh, that's a good one. Haven't had that for a while.
Yeah, yeah, that's a nice one. I can never put my finger on like what it tastes like. Obviously, it tastes like red velvet, but
What is
does
red velvet cake? I don't really know. It's just cake
I
that's
don't
red.
know.
I don't. Is it kind of chocolate
Yeah,
cake, but it's just kind of red? I don't really know.
I have
Is there
no
something
idea.
more
But
to it?
I have
Oh
no
no.
idea.
No, I'm worried
I
about
don't.
that.
Yeah, it's kind of like vanilla-y, isn't it? And kind of sweet, like a cake. And yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
what it tastes like. I'm not. I haven't got the pack. I normally have the packet so I can look at the ingredients. So I'm not sure what the ingredients are, but it's a nice sweet
It's a
tea,
lovely
but not
colour
too
as well.
sweet. Yes, it
With a
is.
bit
It's
of
very
milk, it
red.
goes very nice and pink as well. It's
Oh,
a
I've
lovely
never had
tea.
it with milk.
Yeah.
I'll have to try that. How about you? What are you drinking?
I just polished off some bonfire toffee sticky chai because I just went digging through my cupboard and yeah, I've got loads of this stuff just hanging around. So I've just had a bit of that, and I did cut it with a little bit of extra black tea because I'm just mad like that.
Oh, like mixing teas.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's
Well, see,
insane.
look, I like the sweetness, I like the spiciness, but I want a bit more tea in there. I want a bit more actual tea. So I just a little bit of loose tea goes in there as well.
God, I would never think to do something like that, but I'm very rigid, so
Yeah.
it seems insane.
What have you been up to this week?
Not really been up to much last few weeks. Just been getting back to more regular running. Actually, doing some long runs again. I think I spoke about it on the podcast like a few months ago. I went here for the first time, but I went back to Clydach Vale, which is really nice. It's just out towards, if you're in South Wales, out towards Bridgend, I guess is how I would describe it. Like Pontypridd, Bridgend, like up there in the valley. I don't know whether it counts as the valleys. Maybe it does. Probably does. But yeah, really nice. It's one of those places that you go for a run there and you don't see anyone like whatsoever. It's just one of those places in like the South Wales valleys again. If it's
Oh yeah,
not
that's right up
technically
in
the valleys.
Tonapandy. That's very
Is it?
that's
Is that the
proper
valleys?
up there. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Because sometimes if you speak to people from the valleys and you accidentally say their town is in the valleys when it's like just outside the valleys, they get really offended. So I wanted to make sure. Yeah, so I do love the valleys because there's some really nice places that not many people know about or go, you know? So it was one of those runs where I didn't see anyone. I did like 11 miles, didn't see anyone the entire time until I was coming back down towards the town. So yeah, really, really nice run. Quite tough. My Achilles is still hurting like this week. My Achilles is just like set off my Achilles a bit. And it was all like frozen up there and stuff. It was quite chilly but lovely and sunny. So yeah, that was a really nice run. And then I just did another sort of 11 miles this morning down the coast path. So yeah, that's it. I haven't had anything crazy happen. I'm sorry. So I've not really got anything to say in terms of things that have happened.
You need to work
so.
on your drama still, please.
I know. I need to fall or something crazy needs to happen or I don't know. Yeah. How about you?
I had cross country, last one of the season. It was awful and it was flat. It was quite a bore. It was kind of football pitches was the course, so it wasn't hugely interesting. It did get me thinking though. It was. I thought this so much while I was running it because I wasn't super racing it. I was just looking at everyone else. I'm like, why don't people run where grip is? I don't understand people's understanding of grip. Because a lot of the men always run end of the day, and so there's always like a brown muddy path, around these fields, and everyone runs in the brown mud, and by the side there's a load of grass, and quite often like slightly longer grass at the edge of a field, like little clumps of grass and kind of longer bits. That is where the grip is. It doesn't matter if you've got spikes, cross country spikes or not. Whatever shoes you've got, there is more grip on grass than there is on mud. And most of the time, I was running out to one side on the grass, and everyone else is running in the mud. And I'm just, I don't understand. I felt like, another one as well, I feel like the only sane person in the world, where just everyone else is wrong, but I'm insisting that I must be right. And there was only one point on it where it was really muddy. There was one kind of 90-degree left corner, and it was just a huge puddle, really quite deep. But on all 4 laps, unfortunately it was a 4-lapper, every time I went to the outside of the corner, I did like one fairly small jump over this puddle, and around the outside, again, in that long grass, around the outside, everyone else took the corner really tight, and I heard splash, 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 splash. 5 or 6, like ankle deep kind of splashes through this mud. And on all 4 laps, I overtook about 2 people, at least 2 people each time going around the outside of this corner. But I didn't see anyone else doing it. I'm just like, why is everyone running through thick mud when there is grass to run on? And the whole time, I was just so distracted that I just don't understand. Why don't people know this?
I don't know.
I'm like, these are club runners.
Me,
These are people that do cross country. They should know this kind of thing, surely.
I will always avoid mud if I can.
I don't mind a bit of mud.
around.
I love a bit of mud, but when it's a race, surely, or even if you're not like racing it, don't you want it to be easier? Don't you want it to be better? Don't you not want to slip over?
Oh, it's cross country.
People don't seem to know these fundamentals, and it feels completely bizarre to me. So that distracted me the whole way around. I also did day one of an outdoor first aid course, and I've basically been scared of doing first aid for years because it feels like responsibility, but I actually really enjoyed it. So if we're out on a run, and Amy, if we're out on a run, you have a cardiac arrest, or if you drown or choke, or if your femoral artery starts bleeding, I know how to kind of deal with those things.
Oh, just leave me. I've got to do not resuscitate.
Oh yeah, great.
Just,
no
just
problem.
leave me.
That does simplify things quite a lot.
You know what? It always reminds me of, I've told this story before, when years and years ago I came to one of our club's CPR trainings.
Oh, yeah.
We had like from the British Heart Foundation, maybe,
Welsh
or somebody.
Hearts.
That was it, Welsh Hearts, yeah. So they came and did this CPR training for us. Absolutely brilliant. The very next day, I think it was either the very next day or literally just a few days later, we were on a run in Butte Park and somebody was passed out in the little canal on Butte Park. And I thought, and it was interesting because the adrenaline, rather than just being like, oh God, the adrenaline went straight to like my hands and my legs. And I was like, okay, I need to do something. I know what to do in this situation. Thankfully, somebody else pulled him out, and somebody was calling an ambulance, and he was breathing. But I was straight away. I was like, I know what to do now, you know. But it was so crazy how we'd had that training, and I think it was pretty much the next day or a few days later, somebody was just like passed out, you know.
Yeah,
crazy.
So yeah, it was like really, really good. I've got another day to do in a couple of weeks because it needs to be a 16-hour course to go with my trail run leader qualification. But yeah, as I said, I've been scared of first aid for so long, but I actually really enjoyed it. And all the scenarios we were put in and things like where, you know, someone had fallen off a roof and I had to like check their airways. Okay, they are breathing fine. So I went to check the rest of them and then they started vomiting. And so I had like, right, well, I need to roll them over to get the vomit out. But then the guy who was training, he was being a bystander, being like, what are you doing? You can't move them. Why are you moving them? They might be hurt. And I was like, oh, shit. But he like just did that to put the pressure on. But I'm like, no, because I'm right, because I have to get that out of the way first. If their neck is broken or something, you kind of deal with that later, but you have to stop them dying immediately. So it was all stuff like that, which
was
sounds
somebody
awful.
Like playing the person?
Yeah, like other people in the course. We would just do it for each other.
Okay.
And then, the guy who was teaching it would like just jump in every now and then and just make things harder. So that was good.
I will say those sort of the CPR courses, at least, at the very least, they are so useful. I learned so. They're probably things that people already know, some people, but things like they taught us how to use the defibrillators, which I've always been scared because I always think that if you use them and somebody doesn't need it, that you kill them. And they said no, which makes sense. The machine knows if they need it or not. The machine knows, but I didn't understand that it was that.
You stick it on them, and the machine shouts at you and says no shock advised. Continue CPR, but it might not tell you exactly what to do, but if it doesn't need to shock someone, it won't.
Yeah, and I have no idea. And if I'm in a situation where I have to do one of those things, then I won't hesitate to do it. But whereas before, not knowing that information, I probably would have hesitated and thought, oh, I don't want to do more damage, you know, and all that sort of thing. And just simple stuff as well, like if you're doing chest compressions, if somebody else is around, you take it in turns because they're quite hard going. So you can like sort of tap in and out with it and things like that, which you don't think about, and especially you're not going to think about in the moment because you'll be panicking or worried or whatever. So just having that information very clearly in your head, I think is super, super useful. So I do recommend like people should do a CPR course. You know, you can probably find one offered free through a charity.
Yes, I think at the very least, CPR is great, but if anyone is in a position, you know, if their club's got a bit of money or some funding, you usually get funding for this kind of thing. Do an outdoor first aid course specifically, especially if you're trail running. So useful.
Definitely.
That's our little PSA done for this. Where I might have needed this training was the other day I went and did the Raven Walk route, which is a local route near here, which Amy described when we did it as the worst run she's ever had in her life.
It was. I honestly thought I was going to pass out on that run. I've never been so thirsty in my life. I have never been so thirsty. Was it hot? Was it summer? Was it hot?
Not
I can't
really,
remember.
no.
Why am I so thirsty? I felt so unwell, and I honestly, when we got to bits where we could run, I couldn't because I was so fucking dehydrated.
Yeah. Well, I did it with a friend of the show, Matt Caffin, and he. There was one section that we got off the main path. I had to head up through the woods. A couple of signs on the floor saying something like "Warning." Danger, forestry works, that kind of thing. But they were on the floor. The fence was down. The signs, but it doesn't matter. You just go through.
You
them,
just ignore those.
You just
see them
ignore
all
those.
the time. That's the thing. You see those all the time. I don't know whether it's the same like in England and stuff, but in forests in Wales, they are everywhere. Do not enter forestry, and there's nothing there. Just ignore it.
But you think forestry works? Well, they don't go on at the weekend, do they? So it's absolutely fine. The thing is, this entire hillside had been cleared very recently, by the look of it. And so we kind of got into it and it got worse and worse. We were like going up and over logs and there was loads of branches down. So that bit was all fine. The footing was okay. And then we got to one bit where obviously the heavy machinery had gone through and kind of made these new roads because the trail and the path had just gone completely torn to pieces. So there's a bit of a road going through muddy road. I thought, there we go. We'll get on that road. We can at least follow that to get up to where we need. I stood on it. And that will be the cover photo for this episode, straight up to my shins in this mud, which I leaped out of extremely quickly because I was very worried. I could have just carried on going all the way down. And that was bad. Clearly, some heavy machinery had really torn up the ground and it was just completely slick and possibly very, very deep. So we had to keep clambering, stay on the kind of drier ground, away from these kind of roads that had been cut, on the branches, because it was all pine, so it was all these big pine branches, so a lot of them you could walk on. That was fine. I made a bit of a mat across the top of it. There were some drier bits with bits of gravel, but every now and then you'd get to this bit, you'd look at it and it would just look wet. I'm like, I'm not even going to put my foot on that to test it. And so in the end, there was about an 800 metre section. It took us over 20 minutes to pick our way through it and find our way eventually onto what was a gravel road covered in about 2 inches of mud, but at least that led us up into the forest then and away. But yeah, as it turns out, those signs were actually very well placed, and we should not have gone through there. I do like to think if it was more than two people, I think I would like to think I would have turned us back because it was not at all safe, as it turns out. Some bits I could see, and you could see it was just like completely wet, like really, but it's a huge puddle from all these muddy roads. And just looking at it, thinking that is almost certainly a couple of feet deep there. It's going to be really bad.
That route is just cursed.
It is. Yeah,
it's cursed route.
Yeah, as it turns out, those warning signs sometimes are actually extremely important, and you should really pay attention to them. So that was about an hour into the 3.5 hours. My feet were completely drenched and soaked in mud, and then obviously all the mud started drying and crusting on my feet, and I could just feel it like crusting with every footstep and coming off. I didn't. You said you got incredibly dehydrated and you had like 2 litres of water or something. I took 500 millilitres with me with a bit of energy powder in, so I had about 100 calories and a half a litre of water for 3.5 hours, which as it turns out is not enough.
No.
Because I'm clearly still fucking stupid. And I've only been running 13 years. I can't be expected to know all these things by now.
No.
I have to learn from my mistakes. I won't, but that's what I should be doing. So... and I haven't done 3.5 hours in a very long time. I am not 3.5 hours fit either, as it turns out. All in all, this was a terrible idea.
So no FKT?
No, not quite, unfortunately.
Is our FKT still standing? Are we still...
It is, yeah.
That's so funny.
I'm embarrassed because it's a horrible time.
Yeah, we pretty much walked like most of it, thanks to me.
Bad.
But it's cursed. It's absolutely cursed. There's probably other people that have attempted it and maybe it took them even longer because something happened.
They could be in some of those puddles.
Yeah.
Oof. And worst of all, this week I went to the gym for the first time in about 5 years.
Ugh.
I did proper weight. So basically, a friend was doing some weight sessions for our club. I went along and did one. I was like, actually, no, this is good. I should do this. And then I went on I was a big brave boy. I went to my local gym. I did the induction, which is just filling in health information, giving him the sheet.
God.
And then he said...
I never do those.
And then he basically just said, are you all right with everything? And yeah, okay, go on then. And that was it. The induction was filling in a piece of it. It occurred to me, if I did have a heart attack in there, or if there was some kind of medical issue while I was in there, how do they know which sheet is mine? If there's nothing on me that says my name, how do they... Is he going to look through like 200 sheets of paper to say, well, which one does he look like?
Well, I've
How did they
never
know?
had to do I've never had to do anything like that for my gym. I've signed like when I sign up, I just give them. It's quite like it's a not a big chain gym, but it's a like a they've got a few different like it's a proper gym is what I'm saying. They've got
Yeah.
a few different locations and stuff. But I assume for that reason, I haven't had to give them like in-depth medical details or anything
Yeah.
like that. I don't think I gave them much.
No, mine was just,
information when I signed up.
have you got this? Have you got this? No. Yeah, I would tick all the thing, and then the emergency contact information. But I'm like, how do they know which sheet is mine if I need my emergency contact number called? So
They're not going to. No,
No,
they're
it's fine.
yeah, they'll just leave you there.
So obviously I felt like shit that week, all week really, because when I started this run in the morning, I was just finding bruises on myself. I don't know where they've come from, but I've just got bruises on my calf and on my kind of my upper leg as well, and I don't know where they've come from. So that was fun. And so obviously I finished this run because it's one of those runs, bramble across the calves. Oh, the absolute worst thing about trail running. All other injuries pale in comparison. A bramble across the calves. Oh, awful. Lots of that going on. So that was like, there was all like blood coming through the mud as well. But like luckily the mud sealed it in nicely. So I think that helped the cuts.
Yeah, lovely.
So yeah, just a normal week for me. How is it me getting all the drama now?
I know. Yeah, my life's very tranquil at the moment. So
Of course.
on to our Patreon, so you can support this podcast by going to patreon.com/running is bullshit and donating money every month if you like. We'll sing you a little song. I'm so sorry about this one.
Oh, no.
This was just, it's so dip. Some people need to unsubscribe, okay? We need to, every week, we need to pick on a certain Patreon and just like slate them.
Oh, there was one this week who did leave, so thank you very much to that person. We appreciate that.
It's too long. There's too many people. So yeah, I really apologise for how this turned out. But it was just like surviving, just trying to get all the names out in time. So yeah, here it is. Drew Edwards, Gregory Seacat, Abigail Hardman Lee Wood, Jonathan Carter, Sandra Hines, Bruce Perkins, Stuart Stevens, Ian Thompson, Amanda Murray, Heinton Bollicadle, Jay Howells, Ian Halescraft, Everett, AP, Gail Seal, Sophie Jacks, Nicky Genders, Brian Simpson, Steve Robson, Victoria Cousins, Rachel Bullmore, Angela Foster Swales, Bill Bieber, Let McCarthy, Claire Dina, Matt Lees, Abby Nichols, Kel Ryder, Nikki Jones, Rachel Bentley, Tara Milligan, Victoria Magnus, Catherine Brown, Abby Hewitt, Matt Newbury, Graham Hackland, Steve Peake, Anthony Howland, Martin H.P., Matt H., Ruth K.P., Claire Davis, Tony Boyle, Tony House, McCaffin, Richard Geim, Gabby Thomas, Naya, Tom Alcock, Hibbert, J, Martin Kaplan, Neil Denton, Listen Gibbon, Charlie Neverson, Vicky Robbins, Victoria Dick, Cherie Loughlin, Jason Nesby, Debbie Hurley. Matt Jones, Chris Whitmore, Penny Simpson, Matt Garner, Jason Spinks, Matt Burrows, Francis Howe, Dawn Shepherd, Maria Widge, Maslowski, David Tito, Elizabeth Reese, Karen Hamilton, Cheryl Curran, Kiara Evans, Karen Blay, Larry Warren, Ashley Stead, Andy Robbins, Jerry Grubbs, David Irwin, Fergus Mark, Willis, Noms Dawson, Aaron Shaw, Daniel Braun, Erica Barris, Julia Page, Elizabeth Shaban, Kat Williams, Raymond Quinn, Dewi Spencer, Aldred Elliott Line. Jesus Christ. He's not a Patreon.
Don't forget to get in touch with your running bullshit on Twitter, on Instagram and Facebook. Just search Running is BS. Let us know why you particularly hate running this week. We've had an email here, and they say first time emailing and getting in touch, although I've actually been listening since August 2024. Decided to listen to your whole podcast from start to finish because
God.
I'm probably a bit weird. Yeah, wow. That's not enough time to get all of that in. Anyway, I've been running over 7 years. I've run half marathons, a marathon, note that's not plural, good for you, billions of park runs and billions of shakeout runs. Anyway, I turned 27 this year and also turned into someone who gets a stitch every time they decide to run more than 1 metre. I've tried everything to get rid of the stitch, even read some Runner's World articles. Oof. And nothing has worked. I've got no choice but to stop midway through my local park run and keel over just as I used to as a newbie runner. And that's from Heather, who forgets to sign up to Patreon every month. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, please don't.
Getting a stitch is such a shit problem, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I used to get stitches every single time during the first year or so when I very first started running. I think it was during the first year, and obviously that's not the case here. But I don't really get stitch now. The only time I'd get a stitch, I think, is maybe if I was really dehydrated. So make sure you're hydrated. Obviously food as well if you're eating too close. But then otherwise, I don't know. Like,
I can't remember the last time, but to be 7 years into running and start getting stitches, that's really shit.
yeah, I mean, if you're making sure you're, I don't know whether it's worth going to your GP about. I don't know whether they just laugh and say, well, it's just a stitch, and you get them when you're running. But yeah, the fact that you've been running for 7 years, have you taken like a long break from running and you're getting back into like building up your fitness? I don't know.
Let's not pretend like we're going to give any advice.
No. If I were to give advice, my advice would be make sure you're hydrated. And sometimes as well, what I used to find if I had a stitch is either stop or while you're running, just stretch your arms in the air, especially on the side that you've got the stitch. Just like stretch your arm
that's
up.
one, isn't it? That's all I know.
Yeah. Otherwise, that's like quite strange how you've been running for 7 years and you're suddenly getting stitches again. I don't know. I'd if it was coming back and you can't see a reason, I might be tempted to speak to my GP as well. That's just my advice. Melissa Murrells says rehab, and a angry, sad, exasperated smiley. Not being able to run in the sun, but doing resistance band training in my back garden. Ugh, God,
Horrible.
I hate that. I hate like. Especially if you've been like running through all the shitty months in winter and then you're injured when it starts to get nice. That sucks.
I just checked that emoji to see what it actually is. It's tired face, and I just love that. When I put that into Google, the next suggested thing came up was this emoji, meaning from girl.
Meaning from oh.
Yeah. What does this mean? This emoji, often used by girls, generally conveys weariness, exhaustion, or sense of being fed up or overwhelmed in a situation.
Is that just from girls then? What does it mean?
Apparently.
What about from a boy?
I don't know, but I guess a lot of men are receiving that and being like, whoa, okay, what is this?
That's so funny.
What do they mean by this?
What?
I have seen that it's a criticism of men that don't use enough emojis in their text. Apparently that's one of these criticisms that a lot of women have, that they have meanings that no one knows about.
Yeah,
these unwritten rules.
There's probably something there about emotional intelligence and showing emotion that's there too. And but we're not a sociology podcast, so we won't go into that.
No, we're more of a study than a...
Yeah.
Ken Smith said, getting nervous before a race is BS. I'm not going to win anything, so why is my stomach doing backflips? That is a good point, isn't it? When you're at the beginning of a race and you're like, oh, and you do get like a little bit jittery, a little bit nervous. You're like, why? It's just running around a bit.
Yeah. Sometimes I get super anxious before a race. Often I'm anxious about shitting myself. I will be honest there.
Yeah,
that's what the anxiety often is.
To be fair, that's something to be nervous about.
Yeah. And that often is what sparks the anxiety. But otherwise, it's just going for a run. And I guess the other thing, like, sometimes if you're doing like a really long sort of an ultra or something, sometimes that's like a bit scary, you know?
Yeah,
what if you fall in the middle of nowhere?
I do often think as well, it must be hard to be a fast runner and to think that you've got a good chance of winning this race. That just must be so difficult, because like for most of us, trying to run as fast as we can is bad enough. Having to run as fast as you can, but also look around you at everyone else and thinking about how they're doing. Do they look like they're going to be quick? Are they tired? Are they fresh still? Can they run quicker? I think I know that person. I don't know this person. Are they going to be... Must be so much to think about. I can't be dealing with that.
No, I ain't got time for that.
Oof, hard work.
That's why I'm not fast, because it just brings its own,
that is
issues.
why. That's the main reason.
I run a lot slower. Sherry Grubb says, age brackets are bullshit, especially as you get past menopause and your 50s affect you as dramatically as your teens did. A 12-year-old girl is typically physically different from a 19-year-old, and a 50-year-old woman is on a different planet compared to a 59-year-old. That being said, I'm constantly being beaten by women in their 60s and 70s. So my getting slower in my 50s is possibly due to training deficits, and I just need an excuse. Yep, I mean, you should run some ultras. You're at your winning ultras prime in your 50s, so, sort it out. Yeah. She says, then again, the hormone and metabolism changes were brutal for me, so I feel it's legit. Anyway, I feel like the age bracket of 50 to 59 is bullshit for older women, regardless of my poor training regime and bad eating habits.
Yeah, probably 50 to 59 is probably like one of the harshest age ranges, because that's probably when you're getting the most amount of change and potentially slow down as you get towards your 60s. Like 40s is probably reasonably similar, and 35, the 30s is basically the same as seniors. 50 to 59 is quite a rough one, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that we were talking about those Olympics where everyone's allowed to take performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah, the enhanced games.
This is the opposite of that. This is this is like the deficit games. That's the category you're in, where everyone's having to go through all those changes. Yeah, but I know there is evidence around women and long distance running, particularly really long distances, and I think 50s is like a good age to win stuff.
Yeah.
I imagine the shorter stuff, you're not going to be super fast, but none of us are super fast as we age. But the longer stuff, the ultras and so on, is where older women, and when I say older, I mean like 50s plus, tend to excel.
Yeah, but I feel the difference between 50 and 59 is possibly possibly greater than 60 to 69. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. I suppose everyone's different. Some women start their menopause super, super early. So by the time they're 50, they're probably feeling absolutely fantastic.
They're getting out of the way. They're going for these. Yeah. They're right. I want to get these 50 age group prizes. I'm going to get menopause out of the way nice and early.
Yep.
That's a good plan.
Smash it.
I think that's how it works, isn't it? I think you can do that.
Yeah. You just buy like a fast pass.
Erica Varys Doggett says, hill reps, brutal. I always feel somehow like I'm not doing them right. Either not going fast enough, the incline isn't inclining enough, or I'm clearly just not fit enough. And just generally question my life choices in the middle of them. But they're supposed to be good for you, so... Yeah, it's always a bit tough because you see various things on how long your hill should be, how steep it should be, how fast you should be taking it. I mean, it probably can't be that bad for you. If you run up and down hills, it's probably a good thing. Probably best not to overthink it too much.
I just don't bother with them, I will say, like, if you want a real challenge, I find trail hill reps difficult. I mean, like, proper trail. Like, find, like, a...
Yeah, but that's just walking, though.
Like a muddy... No, for actually having to run up...
No one does that.
Trail hill. For hill reps, it's just, that's really difficult, especially...
Running up trail hills is cheating. I don't endorse that kind of thing at all.
True. But yeah, just don't bother with hill reps. There we go, problem solved.
Yeah, easy. There was a point actually the other day when we were doing this long run, where me and Matt, we were running up this kind of slight kind of gradient hill on grass, but we were both ranting about work at the same time, and it just got to a point where we both just had to stop and start walking because we got so worked up, we were so pissed off and angry, and also running up hill, which we probably didn't quite intend to. We just got distracted, and we're like, actually, no, I'm just absolutely knackered now. We just have to stop and walk for a bit.
Nice.
Before we get to the news, we just want to say this episode is sponsored by nobody, obviously, because nobody sponsors us.
No, I mean, who would? I will tell you who would. What is it, like performance enhancing coffee? What other ones have we had?
Oh yeah,
like
we've had a few random
ones.
emails. Yeah, we've not had BetterHelp. They haven't been on to us yet. They sponsor every other podcast, but not us. Squarespace haven't been in touch. I feel like mattresses, that was a big thing for a while, wasn't it? For podcast sponsorship. No, none of them have come to us yet. Pew braces, no, they haven't.
No. No, because I will say if the products are shit, I will say that, and I will say BetterHelp, you are ethically dubious, and I know that for a fact. So don't even approach us. I'm just putting that out there. I've heard some bad things about BetterHelp, so
Yeah, I don't think we're on their
me.
radar, so don't worry about it.
No, but that's why we're not on anyone's radar. I don't care. I'll tell them straight. Anyway, I don't buy into that capitalist bullshit. Bullshit running these, talking about capitalist bullshit.
I mean, we are a little bit, and the word news in that title is doing a little bit of heavy lifting this week. I mean, I can do this first one. I think you can do the others because, I mean, even this first one is basically Hoka have got a shop. That's the news, isn't it? That's the news. Hoka have got a shop.
But it's such a bullshit. It's such a bullshit shop. Okay.
I mean, I'm not reading this first bit because that's clearly just from the Runner's World article, and it's just saying how great it's going to be. But it does say the store will feature plenty of quirks, such as a working ATM which produces special Hokens rather than pound notes. So, customers can use these Hokens to purchase all kinds of in-store items, from scratch cards to snacks. So almost like money, but you have to buy the money, and then you can buy things with the money that you've bought.
Yeah.
This is like a virtual currency on like a shit mobile game where it's clearly a scam.
Yeah, the whole thing is you miss the most important.
It's Disney dollars.
It's a corner shop as well, so they're disguising themselves as a corner shop. It's on Bethnal Green Road, which I don't know in London. I don't know whether that's an area that's going through gentrification or it's already gentrified. But I feel like Hoka's probably an agent in gentrification because you just know that there's that thing, isn't there, that when you live in a certain areas, as soon as you start seeing like white people running, you know that the house prices are going to go up. It's just but. It's just so wanky, isn't it? A corner shop where you can go and buy shoes, but you have to buy them with like special Hokens and
So of course, if you accidentally buy too many Hokens and like, oh, I've still got 10 Hokens left. And actually everything in store costs more than 25 Hokens. So I've just spent more. It's clearly a scam.
Yeah. It's just like a marketing gimmick, but it's just so bullshitty. I think it's a bit tone deaf as well because, we know there's a decline in corner shops with big companies like Tesco and so on, like opening up shops and sort of driving out family-run businesses. So for like a big corporation like Hoka to then sort of play on the corner shop stuff, I don't know. Something about it just rubs me the wrong way.
A corner shop that just sells like shoes and gels and things like that.
Expensive shoes, yeah. Love it.
Okay, speaking of absolute nonsense, give us these other ones.
I put the last one in there.
Oh yeah.
So before we get to like the showstopper, literally, everyone's probably heard about this. Harry Styles ran the Tokyo Marathon with nearly perfect even splits, and he finished with a time of 3 hours, 24 minutes and 7 seconds. So quite impressive. So the first half was 1 hour, 42 minutes, 3 seconds. The second half was 1 hour, 42 minutes, 4 seconds.
I mean, to be fair, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think but the thing is, I was reading more in this article and he is quite a keen runner. He like regularly goes on sort of 6 to 11 mile runs and stuff. But yeah, I think that's quite impressive. He was wearing Alpha Flies though, so
yeah, but who isn't these days?
Cheap. But no, I did. Apparently, he's one of the fastest running celebrities now.
Okay.
So
on that prestigious list.
That's why I was looking for an article about this, and I found one in like a fashion magazine that just went into like loads of detail about what he was wearing as well. God. So yeah, that's why I found out about the Alpha Flies. But yeah, pretty impressive. Maybe you can go to the Olympics or something. I don't know. And finally, the big story. I've got another one about the clergy. A headline. Because you liked my monk one the other week.
I love the monk one.
So we're continuing with the theme. Every single episode, I'm going to try and find some religious. Not religious either. I think Church of England, maybe Catholicism can get in there as well, but Christianity related running, sorry.
Sure. Okay.
So this one, the headline, Vicars complete more than 1,000 park runs. A group of Church of England priests have completed more than 1,000 park runs and say it helps them keep sane. The 5 vicars turn out every Saturday to take part in the Silksworth event in Sunderland. That's it.
So 5 people have done
5
more
vicars.
than 200 park. I've done like 200 park runs each.
Yeah, and it helps them. Helps
What is
keep
it
them
with the
sane.
BBC doing park run stories recently? Because they are absolute nonsense. I do not understand. Like I know Metro had like a deal with Parkrun, and they would like produce content about Parkrun to be all like nice and fluffy. I don't know if just someone at the BBC has just discovered Parkrun and think it's nice, or they're just doing stories just about completely normal things. Like the one the other week, a man finishes first at Parkrun. There were 2,000 parkruns that weekend, but they found one guy who finished first at one of them in an okay time, not a great time, but it was abroad, so that's a huge deal. And now some men have done some parkruns. That's it. That's the whole story.
They're vicars. And it keeps them sane. Like, you'd think they'd say, like, God keeps them sane or something.
Yeah, I would hope.
Prayer. Like...
It doesn't fill with much confidence.
Also, what are they keeping?
What
are they keeping sane from? What? Surely, like, being a vicar. I mean, I don't know, but surely being a vicar is not like peaceful in that you're at peace with God. Why are you stressed? Why are you not keeping sane?
I said some guys with apologies to Reverend Jen Bradshaw. She's the team rector of the North Wearside Parish, as you know. She's done 316 park runs. Good for her. Well, there you go. The Bishop of Newcastle is also a keen runner. Good to know, isn't it? There you go. You can look up that for next time.
Next time there will be more stories from the Church of England. Or like I said, I'm open to sort of Catholicism, but let's keep it within Christianity. I like the theme.
Well, I don't know. I reckon like a running rabbi would be quite fun.
Yeah,
Imam doing some hill reps or something like that.
But there's just something funny about vicars, isn't there? Like with their collars, like going for a run, you know. So
and monks are quite funny.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Nuns, any running nuns?
Oh yeah, there'll be some of them.
If anyone's got any stories or know of any stories about nuns, vicars, monks, priests, just that, you know, related to running, of course. Just let us
any other stories about them? Possibly call the police.
Anyway, what have you guys? My segue into this. Yeah,
we're done. Let's just finish off now.
Yeah. What have you got coming up next?
I do have another race in a couple of weeks, but unfortunately, in the 2 days before it, I've got like 6 games of football to play in a tournament.
What?
So I'm not going to be in a good way. And as it turns out, this is like a club race, and I'm in the A team, which is a big indicator of just how far the club has fallen in recent months. If I am in the A team, 100% an availability crisis. So that should be very funny, and I'm not going to be at all fit for it. So
just watch out for Mr. T with all those like gold chains and stuff getting in your way at the start line. The A team.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I didn't get the A team thing there. Okay, that was too subtle for me somehow. Wow. Anything for you?
No.
Well, okay, if you've enjoyed this bullshit, you can visit runningisbs.com to see the show notes and the links from this episode and the whole back catalogue. Maybe some links to those Utah downhill runners. That sounds interesting. You can also see all the rest of our episodes, links to our Patreon, our merch store, and our social medias. Thanks and bye.
Bye.
Speaking of going downhill, here we go.
I'm open to Catholicism,